cheese fries are amazing. This, I don't know, your hair looks amazing, whatever the thing is. The amazing means startlingly impressive. Like you would, if you saw something that was really amazing, you would be startled by it because of how impressive that thing was. So here's what I want to tell you about the word amazing. Our church is amazing. This church is amazing, straight up amazing. Here's the thing. When I say our church is amazing, I am not talking about our building. All right, because our building could use some love and potentially a lightning strike. Not sure what would happen if that happened. But when I say our church is amazing, I'm talking about you, because Jesus said in the Bible that our collective group of people together, we are the church. We are the body of Christ, and we are the church, and our church is amazing. You are the church. You are the body of Christ, and this church, you are an amazing church. On any given week at this church, there are 40 to 50 people serving in various capacities in this church. On any given Sunday, 40 to 50 people. That does not count the next Sunday when it will have rotated into a different 40 to 50 people in this church. That is an amazing thing in my mind. On any given week, there are 193 of us here. 190. The day that I started this church, you know how many people were here? 87. 87. And so this church has gone through some pretty big changes, some things that are going on here. 193 people on any given Sunday. That includes 45 children in the children's ministry. Okay, can you imagine 45 kids in this room? I can imagine it, and I can imagine walking right out the door, not being in here anymore. Every Thursday, there's 15 or 20 kids, teenagers that meet for Thrive Youth Ministry. On any given week, our financial giving at this church is $4,600. That is impressive. This is an amazing church. You guys are an amazing church. And to be honest, this church has become the church of my dreams. See, if you don't know about me, this is the first church that I've been the senior pastor of. In other churches, I was a worship leader. I did small groups. I was a youth minister / secretary. I did all kind of weird things in other churches. And this is the first church that I've been at that I was the lead pastor of. And so coming up on 10 years at this church is a very exciting thing to see all the stuff that's been going on here. But as the pastor of a church, I had dreams. Like I had dreams of what the church that I was leading would be like. And on March 14th, 2017, I wrote this Facebook post. And I just want to read it to you because I think that it is important that we understand the dream that is big, the bigger dream for this church, rather than just our day-to-day thing. So let me read this to you. I wrote this, so when I say I'm referring to me. When I used to dream about being a senior pastor, I always dreamt of a church that was casual. Amen. No suits. No suits. A church that was casual, extremely welcoming to all types of people, and a church that was totally sold out to showing the love of Jesus to those who don't know him. I dreamed of a church where lost people felt comfortable enough to explore Jesus from a place of brokenness, not a place where they felt they had to have it all together before they could set foot in a church. I dreamed of a church that was a lifeboat for those who were drowning. I dreamed of a church that would accept sinners and love them so much that they couldn't possibly refuse Jesus. I dreamed of a church that was in constant need of a warm baptistry. I dreamed of a church that constantly pushed people closer and closer to Jesus. I dreamed of a church that bikers, addicts, homosexuals, single parents, families, single people, and everyone else could see Jesus and follow him. I dreamed of being a lifeline to one mission community in the world. Liverpool Christian Church has become these things and so much more. I never dreamed of a church that was fiscally solvent. When I dreamed, it was never about attendance numbers. When I dreamed for LCC, it was never, ever about money or attendance. It was always about people finding Jesus and giving their lives to him, their whole lives. I believe my dreams line up with Jesus' dreams for this church. So may I never be too caught up in the minutia of running a church, but rather always be caught up in the dream of being a church that seeks Jesus. Liverpool Christian Church has become those things and so much more. It is the church of my dreams. It is the place that I want to be. It is where I want to live and do life with people. Thank you. Our church is amazing. My dreams for the church have not changed, but rather they've been added to. And I want to share some of those dreams for this church with you now. When I wrote this, I had dreamed of a parking lot that was completed. The paving company kind of ruined my whole message for today, by the way, because they showed up a week early. But I dreamed of having a completed parking lot. I also dream of a church that's not enslaved to a mortgage. You ever, like, hey, we're going to buy a house and this is great. You buy your house and you're like, now we have to pay for this thing, right? It's like, oh crap, what are we doing? So, like I dream of not having a mortgage for this church. I dream of a youth ministry that has a van to do trips and stuff so they can stop taking our van on every trip. I don't mind, I'm just kidding. It's not my van, so I don't care. It's hers. I dream of a children's ministry that never runs dry of materials and supplies and volunteers so that those 45 kids don't have to come in here with us. I'm joking. I like kids from a distance. I'm kidding. I dream that we can be a people who point other people to Jesus and show our world who Jesus is by how well we love each other, how well we take care of each other. I always tell a story, and we do a thing called Pizza with the Pastor here, and I always tell a story in Pizza with the Pastor about when we lived in Northern Virginia. I had to drive past an abandoned, closed down prison every day to get from my office or from my house to the church office. And there was always traffic. If you know anything about Northern Virginia, there's traffic 24/7. It's never going to stop. And we're like creeping along in front of the prison on a 2-lane road. And up ahead, like kind of like up a hill, I can see a guy on a motorcycle riding past the prison doing this to the prison. Okay? So I'm sitting in my car and I come to the conclusion that dude had to have been in there. You know what I mean? Like he had to have been a prisoner at some point in time. And I thought, if I ever get the opportunity to lead a church, I want to be the kind of church that when people drive by, they don't flip it off, but rather they say, oh, Liverpool Christian Church, yeah, that's the church that did this thing or that thing or whatever for my sister. That's the church that I want us to be, not the church that somebody felt enslaved to be in. This happened recently. My wife works in a doctor's office, and some conversation was going on, and somebody said, oh, Liverpool Christian Church? Yeah, I know that place. That church brought gifts to my grandkids when their father was in jail. And I can't do it! I love that. I love that. And now when we talk about church, one of the things that I hear most often is, oh, aren't you guys the ones that do the PB&J 500? I go, yeah, that's us. And it's just great. It's just a great thing. As a church, we can never stop dreaming about what Jesus can do in the lives of people, and we can never forget about people. I also dream of a church where people's lives are regularly changed for the better. I put it out on Facebook this week, how has your life changed because of LCC or because of Jesus? And here's some of the things that I got back. Someone said, I went from lonely and scared to secure and guided. You can talk about a monumental shift in someone's life. If you've ever been lonely or if you've ever been scared and you've gone from that place to a place where you felt like both of your feet were underneath of you and you knew what you were going to do with your life, that's a big thing. Someone's life changed with that. Someone said they went from holding on to the past, and now they were on the path to forgiveness and freedom. I like how they said that, because forgiveness is a path. If you've been hurt in your life, you know that forgiveness isn't a switch that you flip. and all of a sudden everything is magic rainbows and unicorns. You know what I mean? It is a path to get to forgiveness and freedom. Somebody said they went from fake smiles to real smiles. I love that. I really like that. Because there's nothing worse than a fake smile. You ever see somebody in, like, you're walking down an aisle and it's unavoidable that you're going to, like, have some sort of contact with them, and they do this? Like, I'd rather you ignore me than give me that, you know what I mean? So from fake smiles to real smiles. Someone said they went from looking for acceptance to knowing that they were loved and have a place in this world. Someone said they went from being resentful and angry with church to then knowing what real community was like. Someone said they went from being hopeless and stagnant and resentful to hopeful, purposeful, and intentional. Somebody went from shamed to forgiven. Somebody said they were set free from their past. They went from being angry to being filled with peace. Someone said they were in search of purpose, and now they're figuring out who they really are. At this church, lives are being changed for the better. Our church is amazing. So I've had all these dreams for our church, and I don't think that I'm like out of bounds with what Jesus wants for our church. And so it's not like I'm creating some new thing here. We're just doing what Jesus wants us to do. But I have another dream that I want to tell you about. I've dreamt of a church, and I dream of a church where no matter what situation we find ourselves in, we're still a generous church. I want us to be a church that is constantly giving. Look at these two passages from 2 Corinthians chapter 8. He says, "And now, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches in the midst of a what? Very severe trial." The word trial there is in the Greek is thlipsis. I can't really pronounce that. Thlipsis. So do your best, right? But it means pressure. And so this church, in the midst of very severe pressure, they were under pressure in the town that they were in because they were followers of Jesus. And so in this time, this church was under severe pressure, under a very severe trial. In the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. "For I testify that they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability, entirely on their own." There doesn't seem like overflowing joy and severe trial and extreme poverty and rich generosity. That doesn't seem to match up. If you're going through a severe trial and you have extreme poverty, and I'm talking like, we've all been there. We've all had this poverty thing, like, I'm talking ramen noodles and turn the lights off when you leave the room kind of poverty. You know what I mean? Like, why do you guys not turn the lights off? That kind of like stress and pressure. Am I the only one? Okay, all right, because I felt like a freak for a minute. I'm the only one hollering about the lights. All right, you know what I'm saying? That kind of like, do you really have to have the lights on to brush your teeth? Turn the water off. That kind of poverty is what the Macedonian churches were going through. But even through that, even through their pressure and through their trial, Paul says that they had overflowing joy. And because of their overflowing joy, it welled up in rich generosity. They gave as much as they were able, even beyond their ability. The Macedonian church trusted Jesus. You cannot give beyond your ability if you don't trust Jesus. If you only trust yourself, if you only trust in the money that you have, you cannot give beyond your ability. You have to trust Jesus to do that. The Macedonian church was an amazing church, just like Liverpool Christian Church is an amazing, amazing church. The last thing I want to ask you to say yes to is this, and what Jesus is asking. Jesus wants us to say yes to giving. Now, at this point, you might feel like this whole thing's been a big giant bait and switch. You just told us how great we were, and now you want our money. Yes, correct. I'm not bait and switching. This is exactly the plan here, okay? Jesus wants us to say yes to giving because giving proves our gratitude. Giving proves that we are thankful for what Jesus has given us. And giving proves that we trust Jesus more than anything else. I want to tell you what happens at our church when people say yes to giving. All right? So, heads up, listen up to this. Here's what happens at LCC when you say yes to giving. First thing is this. People get to hear about Jesus. Now, you might be like, yeah, duh. Like, it's a church, that's what happens. But I want to tell you, there's all these philosophies about church growth and how things are going to go and what are you going to say and all this stuff. And should we go out and knock on doors and pass out flyers and this, that, and the other? Sunday morning is the widest open door for people to come and find out about Jesus. All right? Sunday morning church service is the widest door for people to come and find out and hear about Jesus. It is not the guy walking down the street handing you some poorly designed tract, right? It's not that guy who's saying, hey, do you want to go to hell or not? And then you go, I don't know. What are you talking about? And so it's not that. It's Sunday morning. And so when you give, Sunday morning is one of the things that has the ability to happen. And so it's a big thing. When you do that, people get to hear about Jesus. Our kids get to have special rooms and curriculum so that they can hear about Jesus. Did you know that there are people having conversations with children now talking about giving their life to Jesus, even at these young ages? Now, we're careful about that. Don't get the wrong idea. We're not trying to brainwash anybody or anything. But those conversations are happening. And if you've never served in children's ministry, you just might not know that they're having conversations about kids giving their life to Jesus. That happens because you give. Our teens get a special night of the week where they can come and have their own space and talk about Jesus in their own way with their own leaders. And did you know that their leaders, like, I don't know, Snapchat. You guys do Snapchat? I don't know how to do that thing. I don't know why it's better than texting. I don't get it. Okay, just text me whatever you want to say, or don't. That's fine too. But anyway, they do that with the teenagers. Like they champ snap and they, I don't know, whatever. They do all that. That's what the leaders are doing. And that's happening because on Thursday nights, they're able to start building relationships with them and do things with them. And kids are giving their life to Jesus. Did you know that there are students in our Thrive Youth Ministry that I've never met and whose parents don't believe in Jesus and don't bring them to church? And you provide an opportunity for them to do that when you give to LCC. Holy crap, that is amazing to me. Did you know that Alcoholics Anonymous meets in our building every single week? And on a low night, there's 45 people here. On a high night, there's been as many as 75 or 80 people here. Every Tuesday night, I live in the house next door, in case you don't know. I stand on my back porch and I look over and I see people here. Now, we're not preaching about Jesus during these meetings or anything like that, but those signs don't come down on Tuesday nights. Like we don't like pull the thing and let them back up to the top. You know what I mean? It's still there, man. And we have people who've given their life to the Lord because of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that wouldn't happen if it weren't for you giving. Because you know what we charge them annually? $60. And that's just so they'll pick up after themselves. That's really it. On Wednesday nights, Al-Anon meets here with 15 to 30 people on a weekly basis for family members of people struggling with alcohol abuse and addiction. When you say yes to giving, the grass gets cut and the snow gets pushed away. I think that's cool. I don't like walking in snow. When you say yes to giving, the care and support team takes food to people who are sick or have just had a baby or whatever's going on in their life and does things for them, helps them out. I think that's one of the coolest things that we do as a church that nobody really knows about unless they're the ones receiving something. Did you know that when you give, your pastoral staff, myself and Amber and Kimber, we get to buy groceries for our families and deodorant. you're welcome. That's kind of a symbiotic thing there. Did you know that when you give, people get a chance to talk through their life issues and come out on the other side of their struggle? Without raising your hand, how many of you in this room have we gone out for coffee or lunch, or you've sat in my office with a box of tissues that somebody gave, and you've talked through things going on in your life and you've come out the other side of that struggle? Or with Amber, or with Kimber. This happens because you say yes to giving. When you say yes to giving in this church, marriages are often saved and relationships are restored. When you say yes to giving, people are able to forgive people who've hurt them in the past because there's an opportunity for them to talk through that stuff and to talk through that hurt and to deal with the things that have been going on. When you say yes to giving, 10% of every dollar that comes in here goes to a church in the Dominican Republic called Palo Alto Christian Church. And not just that church, but that community. And they're taking care of people's basic needs, like giving them a floor in their house. Okay, remember when you were a kid and somebody might have said, oh, we're getting new carpets today, or the floors are getting put in, and you go, who gives a crap? Like, it's a floor. Like, what is that? Who cares? But now you get a little bit older and you have a house and you're like, we're getting new floors today. You know what I'm saying? Now imagine you've walked around on a dirt floor for 2 years and now it's the day for your concrete to come in and for you to have a concrete floor instead of dirt. That's one of the great things that's happening in Palo Alto right now. And that is happening partially because you give to this church. To me, that's an amazing thing. People get to know Jesus. People get to know that Jesus loves them. People get to know that there's a body of people who care about them. And probably, maybe one of the more pressing things today is that we get to turn the air conditioner on when you give. Could you imagine no AC in this room right now with everybody's funk and it's 85 degrees, you can't open the windows, that wouldn't help. I mean, it's the simple things too, right? It's the huge things about life change, and it's the simple things about turning the air conditioner on. And this is all of the things, many of the things, not even close to all of the things that happen when you give to LCC. Every single penny that comes into this church goes to serve people, both physically and spiritually. I have to have you understand this right now. When you give to this church, I do not receive a bonus. This is not I've performed well, offerings went up, and I get to take some off the top. That is not what happens here. Everybody cool with that? Everybody understand that? Now, unless you guys voted and you want to give me a big old bonus, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. I like a Toyota Tundra bonus. Just kidding. But not $1 goes to any of that stuff. To continue doing the things that we're doing, we need people to say yes to giving. Do you guys remember a little over a year ago, some of you might not remember, some of you might have even been here a year ago, when we said yes to putting in a parking lot? Well, now that's done, halfway done. The other half is to finish paying for it. Now, this is the real bait and switch portion of the mess. Not really, no, because I mean everything that I say. But now we have to pay for our parking lot. We said yes to it. It looks amazing. And now we have to finish paying for it because we all, as a body of Christ, as the church, we said yes to this thing. And it matters, right? This is a thing that matters. Now, I feel so great when I pull up and I drive by the church, going into my house and parking there. Did you feel better about the situation when you pulled in this morning? Because if you didn't see the parking lot before it was done, it looked like nobody lived here. You know what I mean? It looked like we had you've seen those shows on like the History Channel, like when people die or something, and it's like the city goes into ruins. That's kind of what our parking lot looked like. But now, when we drive by, it's something for us to be proud of and be excited about and say, hey, yeah, you know that church with the new parking lot? That's us. Come there. And it's a great place to be, right? Everybody knows about our parking lot. It's like on the news. It's great. But it's something that we have to deal with. And so today, throughout this series, I've been asking you to say yes to different things. The first thing I asked you to say yes to was to outreach, meaning that you're going to reach out from this church to try and bring someone to Jesus. You're gonna pray, you're gonna invest, and you're gonna invite, and you're gonna try your best to tell somebody about the love of Jesus. I've asked you to sign up for life groups and to show you why life groups were such an amazing thing. And then I asked you last week to say yes to serving, getting involved in service at this church, but also having your eyes open and being willing to serve people outside of this church as well. And so today, the last week of this series, I'm going to ask you to say yes to giving. And here's how we're going to do it. Okay, so I need some volunteers. Ed and Christina, Randy and Aaron. I did that wrong, Randy and Aaron. You guys come here. All right, so in that box right there is this card. Just grab a bunch, and I want you to pass them out to one per family. All right, so do that. Go. And okay, so on this card, what we're trying to do is to get you to consider saying yes to a few different things. If it's your first time here, I'm asking you to consider saying yes to writing your name on the card. All right. If you are new here and you don't know what's going on in this church and we look like a bunch of freaks, and we are, but that's okay. That's who we are. But we would like to connect with you. And if you have questions about the church, we would love to have some of your information there to do that. On this card, there are 4 choices there that say I'm saying yes to one of 4 things. Baptism. Perhaps you are ready to give your life to Jesus. You're ready to turn your life over to Him. If you write your name and information on there and you check off, yes, I'm ready for baptism, we're going to be contacting you to have conversations about that, to figure out when you might be ready to actually come and give your life to Jesus. Or if you want to say yes to outreach, if you want to sign up for a life group, or if you want to say yes to serving. By the way, I want to show you something about the life groups. There is a life group on Thursday night that is led by these 2 people, Eric and Maya Bitton. I know her name is spelled weird. She knows it too. You can call her Maja if you want, but it's Maya. And their group is on Thursdays at 6:30 in the Geddes area, if you didn't know that when you were looking at the life groups to sign up for them. So I'm asking you to consider signing up for a life group. I'm asking you to consider saying yes to serving. Now, concerning our parking situation, at the bottom of this situation, that sounds bad. It's not bad, it's a good thing. At the bottom of the card, I'm asking you to consider saying yes to some form of giving. Okay, I'm asking straight up if you would say yes to some form of giving. If you would increase your monthly giving, if you want to do that, by how much? So you would check that off, and you say, we're going to increase our monthly giving by $40. And that would be amazing if that was the thing that you could do. Or we're going to increase... Did I do that wrong?
Yeah.
Whatever, just read the card. All right? Or you can increase your monthly giving, or you're going to start giving monthly, or you're going to increase it.
There you go.
I looked at this beforehand. Right? I didn't just see it. Start giving monthly, or increasing your monthly giving. Or you could maybe choose to give a one-time gift of whatever dollars. The last one on there is you can choose to buy a parking space for $1,500. Now, I understand that $1,500 is a lot of money. $1,500 is a big deal. In fact, this is $1,500 right here. Would anybody like this? Aaron, our finance guy, really likes this idea and really wants to do it. Now, I'm an honest person, and when something goes wrong, I like to tell people that something went wrong. So I'm going to tell you about something that went wrong. You ready? My idea, and it was dope, was that today we would ask you to purchase a parking space for $1,500 and then give you 3 cans of spray paint where you could tag your parking space with your name and all that. But then the paving company came and put the new thing out here, so no. They ruined literally everything that we did. But now what we're doing is this. If you purchase a parking space for $1,500, you get chalk. You can do whatever you want to your parking space. You can write your name on it. And for the rest of time, you will know that it is your parking space. Because you will have chalk and permanent chalk on the parking space. Now, listen, I want to let you know, I know $1,500 is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. And I know that. But I'm not asking you to dig shallow into your pockets for this. I'm asking you to dig deep. I'm asking you, as your pastor and friend, and as a guy who wants to see great things happen here, to dig deep into your savings account and do something big. And so today, if you say yes to buying a parking space, you get your chalk and you can go out and do that however you want. I also want to say this. If your spouse or whatever is not with you today, or this is a lot for you, take the card, think about it, pray about it, and you can make your decision at a later time. Does that make sense? This is not a one and done thing. I feel like it would be wise for you, if you need to spend some time thinking about and praying about doing this, because it is a big thing. It's a very big ask for our church. But how exciting is it that this thing is going on and that this thing is happening? Who wants to hear about the breakdown of how the parking lot, how the charges are of the parking lot? Anybody want to hear that? Because I'll tell you, it's really boring. Short version is, the first company that we had did not want to fix it the way that it needed to be fixed properly, so we had to fire them. The second company cost about $37,000 more than the first company, but to do it correctly. Now, let me ask, I know this makes sense, right? We could have done it halfway and in 4 years be trying to get another 30 grand to do it again, or we can just suck it up, do it right now, and try and get 20 years out of this thing. So that was the logic that went behind doing it how we did it. So we have a certain amount of money that we can write a check for as a church now, which is $25,000. We can write a check to the paving company now. Along with whatever happens today, I will be delivering a check to them tomorrow. Graciously, the company is allowing us 6 months to pay off the full balance of this, which is $63,000 total, just to let you know. So, totally a doable number in 6 months' time, but I really would not like to have this hanging over us for 6 months, because we won't even want the parking lot in 6 months, you know what I mean? So I don't want to be paying for it anymore in 6 months. So that's the idea. Any questions? Seriously, any questions about that? I'm more than willing to answer any questions about it. Concerning this, if you say, yeah, we want to do a parking lot today, we didn't bring our checkbook, that's fine. You can still get your chalk today. It's not going to hold the chalk over your head, okay? Good. Questions? I want to be the guy who answers questions. I don't want you to be confused about any of it. Sarah Berkey? Just kidding. I saw you say no, so that's why I asked you. Okay. Every week at this church, we participate in a time of communion. It's one of my favorite times that we have during a worship service. Communion is very, very simple thing with a cracker and a cup of juice, and it's located on these tables on the right and left, and there's a gluten-free option over here if you need that. And communion is just a way for us to remember what Jesus did on the cross for us. Early on in this series, I referenced Genesis chapter 1, where God lets us know that we are made in His image. We are made in the image of God. I think that is a great and wonderful thing. And however poor that reflection is, we are still made in the image of God, meaning that we should strive to be like God, to be like Jesus in the things that we do. And I go from that into John chapter 3, verse 16. For God so loved the world that He gave. And so today, as you go to the tables and you pick up your communion, I don't want you to, what I really want you to do is to come back to your seat and be thankful for the things that God has given you. God has given us so many things. It is in His nature to give. And we are to be like Him. And so when you take your communion and you come back to your seat, maybe you're thinking about the bread and Jesus and all that stuff, just spend some time being thankful for what God gave for you. Okay? You are dismissed to the tables.